Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have another review and we're going to try something a little bit different. I did do a review a few months ago, maybe best part of a year now, on the Great Wall Hobby SU35 Flankery, I think it was, and I concluded, as most people I think have also done since or before, that it was really nice kit, really excellent, beautifully made, the moulding was fantastic. The only thing that let it down, and this is absolutely typical of Great Wall Hobby kits, was the centre seam down the canopy, which they always seem to do. Mind you, even Tammy, I do that sometimes. But the most unforgivable thing was their instructions, which, if you remember, and if you've had any recent Great Wall Hobby kits, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about now, because they seem to make a habit of having it like a load of sheets that are not stapled, and then they seem to have correction sheets that aren't in any particular order, and it's totally confusing, you know. I think them and AMK in the last 12-18 months have made some absolutely horrendous instruction sheets, and they're not getting any better. Anyway, my attention was turned to this one. So it's the Great Wall Hobby Mig-29 Fulcrum, the SMT. Now, this is actually an aircraft which I'm very aware of, but never actually had a model of, and never actually reviewed any. This isn't my kit. This has been lent to me by someone who wants to see it get a bit of an airing, I think. So it's product code L4818. It's the 48 scale model, and it's not brand new. I think this is actually around about 10 years old, so it's not absolutely state of the art. But I just thought we'd have a look. Bear in mind what we said about the other recent Great Wall Hobby kits, and we'll see how it compares. So let's take a bit of a look. So, first of all, on the side, we have got some interesting illustrations. I'll bring it in so you can see this properly. I've got a couple of Russian examples. One, in fact, I think they're both based in the Kursk region. One in 2010, one in 2009. So they're very much Central Russia. Looks like we've got some nice decals, and I seem to recall those are usually pretty good. And it's got here Lion Roar, Great Wall Hobby. Just looking if there is a date. Pretty sure it was 2010 that this came out. I have a feeling. On the other side, we've got a bit of sort of computer aided design, you know, CAD images. Not really keen on those, if I'm honest. I never like them. But a lot of manufacturers do it. Anyway, let's have a look what we've got inside. It seems to be slightly unusual, and it's an end opening box. Revel fashion. Oh, almost forgot. On the back, we've got all. Whoops. We have got all the what looks like the stencil data. So you can see here. Sorry for my reflections. My light's reflecting because it's such a shiny box. It's really shiny. It's like glass. Yeah. So we've got lots of stencil datas there, and yeah, quite a nice sort of diagrammatical illustration. So let us have a look. Get it right way up again. And as I say, it's an end opening box. Now they've got rid of this, I think, recently, if I recall. I think they've gone more to a top opening box. So this is perhaps a sign of its slightly earlier sort of generation of box. Let's see what we have. Must be careful because it's a nice kit, I suspect. Oh, gently, does it? Okay. All right. So move that out of the way. So, yeah, they do have this thing where they have sections in which certain parts of the kit seem to sort of appear separately, and we've got like a box here, so we'll have a look at that first, and we'll dig out the instructions as well while we're at it, and then the extras at the bottom. I think, whoops, we'll have a look at the instructions first, I think. I think that would make more sense for us. Let's come back to that in a second. Oh, hey, now this is interesting. Staples. So it's not a case of having to have some instructions of how to build your instructions. They seem to be absolutely complete. I think that's true. Yeah, they're stapled. A proper instruction sheet. This is a good start, I have to say. It's a great start. Okay, so you've got a little bit of a history about the MiG-29 on the front, and then very quickly bring you into this so you can see in detail. Very quickly it goes into the construction, and we've got some what looks like really detailed seats, plenty of detail on the head boxes, lots of rivets, because this is a sort of 80s jet, isn't it, in terms of its original design, etc. Late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, they've got some PE seat harnesses which look very nice. I'll have a look at those later. So you're making up your seat and your head box, etc., ejector seat, and then you're bringing in your control stick. Looks like some instrumentation, part of the column here. Then you're building up your cockpit instruments and the cockpit sides, which go on. And we've got here painting guide. Is it painting guide? Oh no, it's Decals, decal guide. So there's obviously a load of decals for the instruments, which looks really good. Looks good so far. And then we've got you bring out your fuselage, which looks like it's only one fairly big piece for the top section, and you are adding this sort of combing area and perhaps it's radio equipment behind the pilot's head. Circuit breaker box, so there we go. Then we've got PE vents and slats. Then you've got what looks like more vents and slats, like the grills for the engine intake. It's like the bleed doors, isn't it, I think. Then you're doing your vertical tail assembly with your rudders going in. Quite a few PE parts here as well, some nice PE additional parts here by the look of it. Bringing those down onto this top section of the fuselage, and you're bringing your little cockpit that you've already built and putting that up from underneath, like a bathtub style. Then you've got this bottom section of fuselage. So actually, sorry, that was the top section and the bottom section, all with these vents on. You've got flaps and ailerons and slats on the front of the wing here, so that's looking really excellent. Looks good. And you've got your horizontal stabilisers going in. And then it looks like we've got some engines, proper engines to assemble, which is really cool. So you've got your compressor blades, you've got your afterburner rings, flame holder at the back, and judging by the way they depict it here, it looks very detailed, doesn't it? That does look rather nice. So that goes on a stand, so it's the Klimov RD33 engine, and it goes on like a dolly stand, which is fantastic. So that's another thing that we're getting less and less of these days, so this is a good thing. I'm just going to look back and see if it does mention a date anywhere. It doesn't, does it? No date. We're still none the wiser. Pretty sure it's 2010 or thereabouts. And I'm going off the markings. I think it was done, if it wasn't 2010, it was not long after. Anyway, so you get an engine to stand on a separate engine stand. Are there two engines to do that? Not just one? Just one, I think. Engine's appearance, yes, okay. Then you've got to build up your intakes, and you've got your ramps, your doors for the intakes just ahead. Some PE parts going in there. More PE parts going in around the vertical stabilisers and the sort of control units and the flap angle, angle of attack indicators and all that stuff. Bringing in your here you've got the covers for the actual intakes themselves, and then you've got the backs of the engines, the covers that go over the back. It looks good, it looks fairly straightforward as well, it doesn't look overly complicated. There's some very fine detail parts, but it doesn't look excessive. Then you've got your canopy, we'll have a look at that, see if there's any seam, because they do tend to do that, I'm afraid. You've got your mirrors going on, and you've got gun sight, and you've got the option obviously of having it open or closed. And then it shows in both conditions, so you can see what it should look like when you've done it. Nose cone looks like it comes as one piece, so that's great. We don't like it like we had on that the Mig-29 recently from ICM, which was a great kit, but a little bit let down, I think. Had this nose that was in two separate split halves, and that's always a recipe for trouble. Then you've got your refueling probe and your barometric sensor, pitot heads all going on. And then we get to the front landing gear assembly. And all your actuators and your oleo legs are there. Bringing in your wheels, it's like a split wheel design. You like your FOD cover, like the splash guard at the back of the nose wheel. and then you put that in, and again, sensibly done this. You're not putting this nose leg in right near the beginning of the assembly like we did on the MiG-25, which again was a bit bonkers actually, even though I say I love the kit, but one or two things about it that could be problematic. This is a later in the build, this is where it kind of should be, you know. Whether you would actually want to even hold back on this and do it later, you might be an option, I think, the way that they've designed this. I'm sure that's possible. Okay, then you get your main gear coming in, and big beefy MiG-29 main gear, of course, and your gear bay doors covers, and you've got the option of having obviously undercarriage down, undercarriage up. You can have them closed if you wish. Although I think actually in this kit, I think with this aircraft I should say, it's one of those planes where when its wheels are down, some of the doors close up again. They only open to allow access of the wheel in and out, and then they shut again for aerodynamic reasons, and also stop mud and stuff getting splashed inside. Then you've got your air brakes at the rear, big air brake in the centre with an actuator. It's like a split air brake, top and bottom. Auxiliary fuel tanks, then you get onto your weapons, and I've got a feeling these are going to be slide moulded weapons, so I think we've got some nice ones here. R-73, air-to-air missile, APU-73, R-77, and then we've got some fuel tanks. It's looking good, isn't it? Looking very good actually. And yeah, I like the fact that the instructions are all in one place, and you have to go hunting for them. So then you got your fitting of your stores loadout under the wings, having pile on them already, and then you seem to just finish it off with this assembling your or clipping on your access ladder for the crew, and that's it really. And then you've just got the sprue trees at the end, and there we go. I've got to say I like this. It looks fairly straightforward. It's logical. You know, they haven't done anything crazy, and you can actually understand it, which is a bit of a step up on some of their other recent kits. We know that the F-15 was another one where they had instructions on different sheets and they weren't clearly numbered and nobody understood where they were or how to assemble it. I mean, it's a bit of a devil, isn't it, when you've got to have instructions of how to assemble your instructions first. Anyway, we've got a colour call out sheet here, and this looks nice as well. So we've got showing you quite a lot of the decal positions and the colours, and we've got the Airfield Kalino in the Kursk region in 2010. On the other side, I think that the actual camo pattern is identical, and then we've just got an alternative squadron, and it's at the same airfield the previous year. So that's a little bit, perhaps that's a little bit of a black mark, a bit boring, but it looks good. Here we have got, oh okay, it's open back. We have got some photo etch, and we've got some decals. Let's take a look at these decals. So first of all, the stencil decals. Now these look really nice, and I haven't got my big zoomy glasses in, so I can guarantee that what you're seeing on the screen is far clearer than what I can see, and I am guessing that these have been done properly. They look like there's proper writing, but I can't actually read it, and I can't speak Russian anyway, unfortunately. But it looks really nice, doesn't it? And there's not too excessive with the carrier film, they kept that to a minimum, and they all look fairly clear. There's not as many as you might have imagined. It's not like a phantom, is it? And the main decals here, but we've also got some more stencils included here. So we've got all our Russian stars, we've got some standard ones, and then we've got like a little blue silhouette around the red. I'm not sure what that signifies, whether it was just a year thing. Let's have a look actually. Yeah, I think that was the 2010, the later one has the little blue shadow. Very interesting. And then you've got various indicators, and as I said, all the stencils, and they do look like they are indeed properly sort of printed up with writing, not just blurb, you know. So those look nice, I've got to say. Perhaps a little bit on the dull side, the decals are. They're a little bit matte looking, but better bear that in mind when you're doing your finishing. But I don't think that's going to be a problem, because it'll be in keeping with the aircraft really. I don't think they're overly glossy. And then we have got some photo etch, which is under some nice film to protect it. Sorry, whoops, there we go. And it's nice and thin, so I think this, you've obviously got the seat belt arrangement here for your belts. I think that that's going to work quite well because it's thinner than Tamiya photo etch for sure. It's not the thinnest I've ever seen, but it's, yeah, I think that'll be fairly pliable. If you do have trouble getting it to comply, or conform I should say, you can always anneal it because that normally helps a little bit, get it over a flame. So that is quite nice. I'm just going to zoom it back out. Yeah, there's things about this that seem a bit nicer than some of the newer stuff, ironically. I'm not sure about maybe just the finish on the decals, I'm not sure about it. A bit matte looking, aren't they? A bit dour perhaps. But apart from that, it looks really excellent. Let us have a look at the plastic now, because that's what everybody really wants to see, isn't it? He says. To get it to go back, it's not wanting to. Anyway, let's have a proper look at what we got then. Now, I mentioned we've got this box within a box. Let's see what that's all about. I think the easiest way of doing this, instead of leaving it in the box, I'll just take the springs gently out and we will have a look, you see, like so. Now, because this isn't mine, I'm not actually going to take them out of the bags, even though they are resealable. The trouble is that when you unseal these bags, they never quite seal properly up again. I always find that they always seem to lose their tack, and they're not really resealable in the true sense. They look like they've been opened, so I'll be a bit respectful, I think, and just not do that. So let's go into this box, see what we've got in here first. Oh, okay. I don't know whether this was supposed to be on a screw or whether it's been cut off the screw at the factory. Ah, clear parts, right. Now, any more? Looks like there's some more in there. No. It's just quite a substantial box. It feels like there's a bit more to it. Right, we'll start with the clear parts then. Now then, this is where I did have some misgivings. Now, Great Wall Hobby are really excellent at packing their clear parts. Not only do they put it in a clear plastic bag on its own, that's not got any slack, so it can't get scratched, but they also put a protective sort of adhesive, low-tack adhesive piece of film over the most sensitive parts. I'll bring you in so you can see this properly. And what we're really looking for here is clarity, lack of distortion, and hopefully no seam up the middle, which they always tend to do, I'm afraid. Now I mentioned I haven't got my super zoomy glasses on, but I don't think there's any seam on that at all. Can you see? There isn't a centre seam, and the F15 and the SU35, they all came with centre seams, but nothing on this. That looks excellent. So that's better than their other products I've seen. So that really is probably the best Canopy clear parts that I've seen on a Great Wall Hobby kit. So that's a good start. Excellent. So I'll put that over there. And then we have, this is the crew access ladder that we just talked about, which comes at the end of the build. And it's a nice one. It's sort of got this. It's like been slide moulded, I think, because it's like moulded all as one piece. You just need to clip out the middle bits of sprue, and obviously the ejector pin sort of flanks that are on the edges to enable them to eject it from the mould. But that looks nice, actually. I think minimal cleanup on that and you'll be absolutely fine. Then we've got we also mentioned toward the end of the build again, we've got these air brakes, and they look very nice, don't they? Some really good rivet detail, little tiny access panels there. That looks smashing. And then we've got one or two, I think it's just the end of the flare dispenser, one or two other very small parts, and I was going to say that's the instrument, but it's not. I think maybe something behind the driver's, the pilot's head. A little bit of a bulkhead, I think. Okay, I'll pop that over there. Now then, this is the interesting bit we really need to see, and we need to zoom out for this. So we have got the top of the fuselage. And I do like the way that Great Wall Hobby always produced these in a single piece. You know, I built the Revell F15E Strike Eagle, the one that everybody raves about. I still don't know quite why. It's not a bad kit, but it's not a great one either. And that has got, you know, separate wings. No, it hasn't. Sorry, I lie. That's wrong. Sorry. No, because I know that because I'm using it as... right, I'll just retract that comment because I like to get things right. And if I do get it wrong, I always say so if I realise. So actually, no, it is like this actually on the F15E. It's true what I said about it not being quite as good as other people seem to think it is. I had lots of fit issues and getting it to go together wasn't easy. The intakes were naughty and we had problems at the back end and a bit of an old kit. This isn't, but I do use that actually. Oops, I do use that as a paint mule. I've got two because there was a spare one for some reason in the kit. Anyway, going back to this one, let's have a look. So, let's zoom you really closely in so you can see the front of it. Now, I've got to say, the detailing looks absolutely exquisite here. That looks marvellous. Look at that detail ahead of the sort of coving on the cockpit front. There's all sorts of little vents and grills above where the instrumentation is here. Ah, that's really nice. And then these grills here, just above the air intakes for the engine underneath. Lots of detail there. We've got some nice inlet sort of flap vents just behind the main top vents for the engine. And then you've got some amazing panel line detail. Look at this. Ah, that's nice. Access hatches. You've got riveting. Because this is before they went to composites. So this is an aluminium airframe aircraft. I think it has got some composite materials in it, but it's mainly aluminium. It has to be said. It's sort of last of the generation. What they call them, fourth generation, don't they? That's really nice. And there's yeah, I'm not sure about the wisdom. It seems to be a little bit bent here, don't they? The trailing edge. It's obviously a sensor of some sort, like a sensor head. But obviously, because they've not put this on a sprue, whoops, because it isn't on a sprue to protect it, they're a little bit vulnerable in that box, aren't they? Anyway, they're not actually broken off, so that's fine. So you just bend them back into position and a blob of ultra thin cement in your way. But look at this. You've got again the start of the engines on the top here, where the engine bells are. Really detailed, isn't it? Beautiful. That's very nice indeed. We'll pop that over there. Put it back in the box very gently later. Now, as I said, we're not taking the rest out of these bags, only because if I unseal them, they're going to look unsealed and it'll spoil it, I think. Now interestingly, we've got some more different. Can you see this? We have got some more air brakes here. So there must be several versions. Sorry about the reflections. So I'm thinking of actually reducing my lights a bit here. Let's just kill the light a bit. That better? Yes, that's a little bit better, I think. Yeah, we've got different air brakes, so there must be different air brake design. Then you've got these beautiful vents. And this is actually the underside now of the actual main fuselage. So, again, little vents here. Fantastic detail there. Lots of little panels, access panels and hatches. Ventilation grills here, little tiny ones. Absolutely gorgeous. And obviously there's a separate cover for the engines themselves. The engines go in there, so it's like a unitary sort of modular construction. That's where you're going to sort of, you put your top on, then your bottom, then you put the engines in, then you cover it up with the sort of engine hatches. But it's very nice, and there's no flash here at all. Out a bit. There's no ejector pins in awkward places. They all seem to be on the other side. And they do this thing with regard to ejector pins, which, you know, Tamiya and others should copy really, where they put a stub on the trickier parts that they're worried about getting out of the mold. They put a stub on it with an ejector pin allocation there, and again here, stubs. And then you just cut them off. And then you don't have any ejector pin mark on the actual part. An easy, quick clean up and you're away. And then we have down here It looks like it's a tank, isn't it? Fuel tank here. Come back a bit for this. That looks nice. So that's a great sprue. Oh, and we've got the I almost missed it. We've got those slats I talked about. The slats on the front of the wing there. And again, some super detail here. Yeah. I'm going to knock off my other light now because I think that my bright lights are not helping us. There we go. That's better. A bit less reflection. So you can see some absolutely immaculately fine moulding there. It's excellent. No problems at all. Now, we have got here a set of sprues for your engine. And we've also got some drop tank. And we talked about whether the engine was going to be assemblable as a separate piece. And of course it is. Look at the detail on that. You've got all these wiring harnesses, you've got feed tubes, you've got control units, all visible. All visible. Absolutely gorgeous. We've got the jet pipes here, then the flame burner ring, the inner and the outer. Oops, sorry. The outer here and the inner here. And it's all slide moulded, so you can see, hopefully just about, you can see the internal detail on that. Very nice. We've got flame ring here. Compressor blades at the front here. And the guide vanes at the front here. And then you've got the sort of petals, if you like, of the engine at the back here. So there's a lot of detail there. And there's two of those identical. Very nice sprue. And again, no flash, no silly ejector pins anywhere. Oh, I did just miss something worthy of mention here. A little bit of internal, well, it's actually external. It's some of the compressors and valves and things on the exterior of the engine. But look at the detail on that. That's amazing. What stunning moulding is that? Beautiful. That's very nice. We'll pop that over there. And then we've got, well, okay, this is just a little bag of pylons basically. And they are nicely moulded. Look at the detail. You've got all sorts of panel lines, you've got rivets, you've got little access hatches and little adjustment flaps and things. Absolutely beautiful. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of those for your pylons. But then we have some more pylons, it would seem, and various. Come out a bit of this. Yeah, various little parts, pitos, probes, sensors, etc. And then 1 or 2 of the, I think it's the pylons for the drop tanks as well. And again, look at the moulding quality here. It's perfect. There's no flash, there's no flaws, can't see any sort of blemishes in it, or and they've gone again to be very careful the way they've chosen the design of the frame for the actual sprue, so that there's no ejector pins on the parts. So this time we have got this rather strange triangular shaped sprue, and it's got the cockpit sides here. So you've got your cockpit detail with little levers and throttles and things, and you also build into this by adding 1 or 2 of the parts. Here obviously is your instrumentation, the main instruments, and some of those decals, as I mentioned at the beginning, they go into this with your up-head, I was going to say head-up display, but it's not a head-up display, just a standard screen. One will be radar, one will be, attitude, altitude, speed, etc, etc. Very nice, very nice. And then we've got the refueling probe here, which it looks like it's only shown in the retracted position, but that's okay. And then you've got these various parts I mentioned that are added to that main cockpit side, either side of the pilot here, with various levers and switches, lots of them. I mean, moulding's perfection. There's no flaws. You can see it's Tamiya-esque, isn't it? It's very nice. Right, now then, two big ones now. I'll do the small one first, actually, just to get that out of the way. Because this is something that we all like about Great Wall Hobby very much, and that's their beautiful weapon sets that are slide moulded in a single piece. So all you have to do is clean up the contact sprue gate points. And that's kind of it really, and you end up with a perfect missile set without any horrible seams. Usually, I say that, there may be seams. I'm just having a look. I don't think we can see any seams to speak of. No. You're ending up with a really perfect set of weapons, and you've not got a load of silly ejector pins on it, you've not got seams and marks all over it. You end up just clean up those contact points and that's it. The job is done. You end up with a perfect weapon. And look at some of the detail here. You've got the drag fins at the back. Sorry about the noise in the background, I think one of my neighbours is doing some gardening. Look at the drag fins there, look at that. Can you see the gridding effect of the fin tails themselves? It's really nice, isn't it? And with these, this is an air-to-air missile, and again there's some very fine detail there. Superb. That comes all in one little sprue its own. Then we have two big sprues, so I'll zoom in out for this one. Now then, this is a real meat and potatoes of the kit. So we've got the slide moulded nose here, which is really nicely done. And we turn it over and we can see, yeah. So again, we don't end up with a silly, nasty join that we've got to fill and sand and fill and sand, and you know, you don't get those problems when you've got a slide moulded nose, as long as it's the right diameter where it meets the rest of the fuselage. You're laughing. Here we've got these lovely tail fins and vertical stabilisers, and look at the detail on this. Can you see the rivets and the access hatches? That's a beauty. Really nice. Then just above it we've got our various flaps and ailerons. So yeah, we've got ailerons here, and those are obviously the flaps. And then we've got the horizontal stabilisers. Try and get this in the light so you can, there we go, catch that detail. And again they have these sort of trailing sensors at the trailing edge of the actual tail surface, which you've got to be a little bit careful so you don't knock them off. But beautifully moulded, free of flash. And then we've got the engine intakes here, and they are really nice and lots of detail, little access hatches on the side, rivets all along. Try and catch that for you. A bit tricky with the bag, isn't it? Sorry about that. Looks gorgeous, to be honest. That's a really nice sprue. And, other side of the intake ramp here. Probably easy to see the rivet detail on this one. There we go. Look at that. Lovely. Very, very nice. A lovely, lovely sprue that. The thing is, you look at them when they're like this, and you see the quality of the moulding. Nothing nasty that's visible, and it makes you want to build it, doesn't it? I mean, we talk about this. I'm going to talk about this a lot more in my other video that's coming soon, when I talk about perception about reviews a bit more, because lots of people say, oh, this is the best kit, fantastic. There's a new SU-33 just come out, and I'm sure a lot of you know about it. It's got nearly 700 parts and it is a 48 scale and it's £100. But you can understand why it's £100 when you see the kit actually. It is a very nicely conceptualised and engineered model. Whether it goes together well, nobody knows yet until somebody's had a go at it. But it's a big project, that, you know. And we talk about, in this next video, I'm going to talk about what you expect, and if you criticise, I criticised one of my kits recently that I built, and I got a little bit of, I wouldn't say flack, but a little bit of feedback saying there's nothing wrong with it, it's great, you know, what are you talking about, it's the best Spitfire I've ever seen, you know. But it's all relative. It's all relative. Now, if you go to the, you've had a kit that's absolutely one of the best for a couple of years, as I did. I won't go into the details now, but you then go to this Spitfire, which was a nice kit, a really excellent kit, but had one or two issues, a couple of annoyances. People don't understand if they haven't been through the same evolution or process of going to the better kits, and it may well be that people who see that review, who've built even better kits, still think, well, yeah, but I think the Tamiya Tomcat was better. And it may well be. It may well be. It's all relative, really. You can only review what's in front of you. But that was actually a build when I said, actually, the one I built before, which was a year older, was actually better. And Tamiya made a bit of a step back on the kit in question. We won't go into it now, but watch out for that one, because it's going to be interesting. It makes you think, when you think, oh, this is the best kit I've ever seen. Well, yeah, that you've ever seen or you've ever built. But then the next one a week later could be better. Or maybe the one a year before might have been better. Certainly with this though, this is not the latest from Great Wall Hobby, and it looks fantastic, to be quite honest. Last sprue, look at this. This is gorgeous. Here we go, bring you in. Now finish waffling. Look at this though. Got some mega detail here. So we've got the wheel bays here that you're looking at, with some superb panelling, the wall panels on the side of the bay. Look at that. And again, underneath, it's got wiring, you can see the wiring here. Can you catch that? Absolutely amazing. Fantastic detail. And you've got all the little vents and bulkheads. Again, more wiring. Don't know if that's coming up on the vid. Yeah, there we go. Look at the detail there. That's absolutely stunning. We've got the beautifully shaped pilot seat here, complete with the sort of ribbed seat. Hope it's leather. And then you've got more detail around the seat, and this is the ejector seat system, which looks really, really good, doesn't it? Check this out. There's some real fine moulding going on there. We've got weight on wheels, which is really good. Even on the nose wheel, we've got weight on wheels. Great Wall Hobby do this really well. I mean, I wouldn't bother with any resin on this kit, from what I've seen anyway. I think you'd be wasting your money. Don't think it needs it. Just too good. And that's another thing I'll talk about in my other video as well, about, we get into a habit of buying resin parts because we think it's automatically going to be better. Sometimes it is. It's certainly better if you want to avoid too many parts, and we just talked about this SU33 where it's got 700 parts. Well, that's probably too many, to be honest. And in that case, you might want to get a resin seat which is complete and perfect and detailed and is in one piece. But you don't need to. You don't need to. I'm not a fan of resin personally. It's not that I don't think it's excellent, and it doesn't. It does give a better product in terms of the look, but I'm not a fan of using resin for lots of reasons. You won't go into it. Anyway, we've got the gardeners out, haven't we? Sorry about the noise. So there we go. We've got some real nice bulkhead detail here. Can you see that? And then we've got some. These are the covers I talked about. The outer panels that cover up the engines here. And we've got the oleo legs for the main gear, and some absolutely, knocking it out of the park, the detail here. There's no flash, there's no problems. It looks perfection, really. Perfection. So, try to ignore the noise. So what do we think about that then? I think that is an absolute stunner, and if you want a Mig-29, this is probably the place to go to get one, I think, because nothing I've seen is going to match that. I don't think so. So that is Great Wall Hobby's Mig-29 SMT Fulcrum, and it's very much around the year 2010 model year in terms of its service. Year in service, I should say. How would I rate it? I think that's a 9.5. The decals look a bit underwhelming in terms of finish, but apart from that, I can't think of anything to criticise on this kit, actually. Maybe there's a lot of parts. I don't know if it actually tells us how many there are. Let's have a quick look. It might turn to the side. No, it doesn't seem to do that. Probably tells you somewhere, but I don't know. There's a lot of parts, but I'd say it's quite good value. I think this is retailing around £65–70, something like that. Don't think that's excessive, really, especially given the SU33 at £100. So I think that's a real thumbs up from me. So I think that's going to be a 9.5 out of 10, really, because it's just that good. Well, I say 9. Let's go 9. I think the design of the box is a bit underwhelming. I'm not careful they did the box design, but the kit itself, absolutely knockout, to be honest. Really like it. Beautiful kit. And they didn't have a seam on the canopy, so they got an extra point for that straight away. Anyway, there we go. Hope you enjoyed the review, found it interesting. Sorry about having them in the bag. I didn't want to get them out of the bag. I think it would spoil it a little bit. And we didn't need to, because they're so clear, these bags. You see pretty well, it's just the reflections. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and joining me. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you would. And if you haven't already, you definitely should click the notification bell to make sure you get notification about the next video coming. And hopefully that one will be a bit quieter in the background. But that I think a lot of models will find interesting, and I think it's getting into a bit more detail about comparing perception with reality, and how my perception can be different from other people's. If other people have built, better kits than me, I mentioned things like the Tomcat, or Lightning from Tamiya, or some of these other fantastic kits. There's some new ones coming out from people like Border that look incredible. And it's, the best kit you've ever made is only as good as the last kit you made, really. The last best kit. Anyway, without further ado, we'll call it a day. Thanks very much for watching, and until next time, please all stay safe, stay well, and try to avoid the gardeners if you can. Thanks a lot. Bye for now. Take care. Bye.